You know, you've definitely seen the highlight reels.
Oh, absolutely.
Like you picture a border collie and the image is just so cinematic, right? It's this incredibly agile, laser-focused dog just flying through an obstacle course.
Weaving through the poles at top speed.
Right. So fast they just look like a blur. Or, they're out on this misty Scottish hillside, locking eyes with a flock of 100 sheep.
Controlling the entire landscape.
Exactly, with nothing but a stare and like a whistle. I mean, they look like the Einstein of the dog world.
They really do.
But what the cameras never show you is what happens when that genius gets profoundly bored on like a random Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, based on what we're looking at today, an unemployed genius in your living room isn't just a pet. It's a structural liability.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. And honestly, it is exactly where the disconnect happens for so many people. Because we fall in love with their sheer capability.
Yeah.
Right? We see the intelligence, but we fail to contextualize what that raw, high-octane intelligence does when it has absolutely nothing to process.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive.
Right.
We are taking the material we've gathered to really strip away that romanticized cinematic perfection. And, we're also going to cut through the exaggerated horror stories you sometimes hear.
Yeah, the extremes on both ends.
Exactly. We want to get down to the lived reality. So if you are sitting there wondering what it actually takes to share your life, your home, and your schedule with one of these dogs, well, that's what we are unpacking today.
And to truly understand that lived reality, we have to completely reframe the concept of dog ownership.
How so?
Well, if you're evaluating whether this breed fits into your life, you need to throw the word ownership out the window entirely.
Went out.
Yeah, entirely. You are evaluating a partnership. I mean, a Border Collie doesn't just want to exist in your general vicinity while you watch television. They demand a profound willingness to engage. That distinction partnership versus passive ownership literally dictates every single hour of their day-to-day care.
All right, let's look at what that day-to-day actually entails. Because before we figure out if you should live in an apartment or a farmhouse, we really need to understand how their brain is operating on a random weekday morning.
Definitely.
Reading through our research, it sounds less like having a dog and more like having a highly competent, aggressively micromanaging roommate.
That's a great analogy.
So what does a typical day look like? And I assume it's more than just taking them out to throw a tennis ball for 20 minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just run a Border Collie until they're physically exhausted, but you haven't engaged their brain,
Yeah.
you haven't solved the problem at all. You've just created a very fit, highly energetic, incredibly bored dog.
Oh, great. Fast and bored.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how they view their role in your house. They genuinely believe they are the designated supervisor of the day. Yes, they're tracking you. They want to know your routines, your movements, and where every member of the quote-unquote flock is at any given time.
Okay, hold on. When you say tracking, what does that actually feel like for, the person just making coffee in the kitchen?
Wow.
Because the literature mentions this constant checking in behavior, and some people apparently find it delightful, like having a deeply attentive little shadow.
Sure, some do.
But I have to admit, if I wasn't expecting it, having a dog intensely staring at me while I fold laundry might feel a little, intense. Like, am I folding these towels wrong? Are you judging my technique?
It can absolutely feel intense. Think of their brain like an air traffic controller.
Okay.
If an air traffic controller doesn't have a flight schedule, they panic, okay? Because they assume planes are going to crash in their airspace.
Oh, wow.
A Border Collie without a structured daily routine feels that exact same systemic anxiety. They need to know the flight schedule of your household.
So they need the itinerary.
Exactly. When do we wake up? When is the physical exercise? When is the mental enrichment like, puzzle toys or training? When do we rest?
And if you don't give them one?
If you don't provide the schedule, they will invent one. And their schedule usually involves pacing, staring, or hurting your furniture.
Hurting the furniture. Wow. Which is actually a perfect segue into the physical space they occupy.
Yeah.
Because if I have a dog acting as a highly anxious air traffic controller who needs this intense combination of physical and mental engagement, the logical leap most people make is, well, I just need a massive piece of property.
Right. I need a farm.
Exactly.
Okay,
let's unpack this. The assumption is if I have a giant backyard, the dog will be fine. But the data we're looking at absolutely destroys this idea. We really need to bust the yard myth.
We do. It is arguably the most pervasive and damaging myth in dog ownership, particularly for high-energy working breeds.
It really seems to be.
People just equate square footage with adequate exercise and mental fulfillment.
Right. I think the assumption is I have a half-acre fenced-in yard. I'll just open the back door, the dog will run around, do some wind sprints, and tire itself out.
Yeah.
Why doesn't that work? I mean, they were bred to run in open spaces, weren't they?
They were bred to work in open spaces, and that is the crucial distinction. Square footage is not a substitute for cognitive closure.
Ah.
A yard without a job to do is essentially just a larger outdoor prison cell to a border collie. Left alone out there, they will rarely self-exercise.
Wait, really? They won't just run around?
Not usually. I mean, a hound might run around following a scent trail for hours, but a border collie runs to control movement.
Oh, of course.
If there are no sheep, no human engaging them, and nothing to control, they'll either just sit at the back door waiting for you, or worse, they'll find inappropriate things to control.
Like what?
Like barking aggressively at the neighbor's lawnmower, or chasing cars along the fence line. The yard is a nice supplement, but it is never a substitute for your active partnership.
So it really boils down to the commitment of the person holding the leash, not the size of the property deed.
Exactly.
The case study showed that a border collie living in a high-rise city apartment with an owner who actively walks, trains, and engages their brain every single day is going to be far more balanced than one sitting alone on a sprawling rural estate.
Precisely. And honestly, urban environments offer some really unique benefits for a brain that craves novelty.
Like what?
Well, a city walk is a sensory explosion. You have changing environments, totally new scents on every block, and you usually have a high concentration of advanced training classes or agility clubs nearby.
That makes sense.
That sheer novelty is incredibly stimulating and exhausting for their brains.
But let's be real, the urban environment also sounds like a minefield. You are dealing with a setting packed with fast-moving, unpredictable stimuli.
Oh, it's intense.
You've got joggers, people on electric scooters, skateboards, delivery trucks. If a dog has an ancient, deeply ingrained instinct to control fast-moving objects, a busy sidewalk must be incredibly stressful.
It can be.
The literature talks a lot about reactivity in these situations. What does that actually look like for you, the person holding the leash? Are we talking about a dog just like looking at a skateboard, or is it more extreme?
It is usually much more extreme. Reactivity in a herding breed often looks like lunging, frantic barking, or sometimes dropping low to the ground and freezing, entirely locked onto the moving target.
Wow.
Yeah, that is the herding instinct misfiring. They see the skateboard and their genetic scream, "That sheep is breaking away from the flock, go get it."
So how do you even handle that?
Managing that requires intense proactive leash work. You have to teach them to look at the trigger and then immediately look back at you for direction.
That sounds exhausting.
It's work. In a rural setting, you have the luxury of vast, quiet spaces where they can stretch their legs off leash without dodging a cyclist every 10 feet. But the core truth remains. Whether you are on a homestead or in a penthouse, the environment will not do the work for you. You have to be an active pilot.
It makes complete sense that their need to control moving objects makes a busy city street stressful. But let's bring this inside.
Okay.
If we take them out of the city and put them in a quiet suburban living room, they don't just switch that instinct off, do they?
Definitely not.
What happens when you try to blend this working genius with the chaos of a normal family? I'm talking about a house with a cat, or maybe a toddler.
Right.
You also have to baby-proof your house, but for a Mensa candidate. What happens when the unpredictable, fast-moving object isn't a bicycle, but a human 3-year-old?
Well, if we look at the evolutionary biology of the breed, we have to understand the mechanics of herding. It involves spotting erratic movement, stalking it, and stepping in to restrict it.
And restrict it how?
Often by nipping at heels.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Now, apply those mechanics to a toddler. Children run unpredictably, they scream, they flail their arms. To a herding dog's brain, that child is acting exactly like a rogue, misbehaving sheep.
Oh, my gosh.
And the dog feels a compulsive need to bring that sheep back into line.
That is a terrifying thought for a parent, but it perfectly highlights why supervision isn't just a suggestion, it's mandatory.
Absolutely.
And it's not necessarily that the dog is aggressive or vicious, right? It's just a completely inappropriate application of their work ethic.
Exactly. It's a management issue. And that is why the physical architecture of your home's interior is so critical. Inside the house, This breed absolutely requires what we call an opt-out zone.
An opt-out zone.
Yes, a designated, highly protected rest space. This is usually a covered crate or a completely separate quiet room.
Okay, so they can escape.
Exactly. If the
Oh,
kids are being chaotic, the dog needs to know they have a safe harbor where they can decompress, and crucially, where the humans are not allowed to bother them.
that's a good boundary.
And on the flip side of that, the children in the home must be explicitly taught how to interact calmly and predictably with the dog.
Right, the management has to go both ways. And during those early training phases, especially with an adolescent dog whose brain is just pinging all over the place, it sounds like baby gates are your best friend. Oh, you will buy so many baby gates.
Just managing the physical space so nobody overwhelms anybody else. What about other animals, though? If I already have a cat, is a Border Collie going to spend the next decade trying to herd my cat into the corner of the bathroom?
It is entirely workable, but it requires highly structured introductions. What's actually remarkable is that despite that intense drive to chase, they have a huge capacity to form deep, affectionate bonds with other dogs and even cats.
Really?
Yeah, provided there is early, positive exposure. However, prey drive is genetic, and it varies wildly from individual to individual. You can't just throw a kitten into the living room and assume it will be seamless.
Yeah, definitely don't do that. And just to close the loop on managing their physical space, if you do have that backyard we talked about earlier, secure fencing isn't just to keep other animals out. It is to keep your genius in.
Yes.
Because if they don't have that mental engagement, all that physical agility turns them into master escape artists. They are ultimate problem solvers. If you don't give them a puzzle to solve, like a training exercise or a job, they will literally invent one.
And what does their puzzle look like?
The puzzle of how do I manipulate this gate latch or can I scale this 6-foot fence is a very common project they will assign themselves.
Okay, so managing their brain and their environment is clearly a full-time job, but we also have to talk about managing the actual physical hardware wrapping that brain.
The coat.
Yeah. When you look at pictures of these dogs, they are stunning. But living with one, I mean, I am just imagining a perpetual snowstorm of fur blowing across the kitchen floor.
It's not far off.
What is the actual day-to-day reality of their grooming? Because that majestic coat isn't just there to look pretty in agility photos, is it?
Not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the Border Collie's coat is a highly specialized piece of evolutionary technology.
Evolutionary technology, I love that.
It really is. It is a double coat. This means they have a dense, soft, almost woolly undercoat designed purely for thermal insulation and a longer, coarser outer coat made of guard hairs that actively repels water and dirt.
Okay.
Think of it like a highly engineered thermos wrapped in a raincoat. They actually come in 2 varieties, rough and smooth, but both utilize this double-coated system.
Wait, really? Even the smooth-coated ones?
Yes.
Because they look so much sleeker, I would totally assume they're just single-coated and way lower maintenance.
It's a very common misconception.
Mm.
The smooth coat's outer guard hairs are just shorter. You might not deal with the same long tangles, but the dense insulating undercoat is still there.
Oh, wow.
And it still requires regular dedicated brushing. For the rough coats, you're brushing a few times a week, paying intense attention to the feathered areas.
Like the legs and stuff?
Exactly. The backs of the legs, the chest, the tail, because that is where the friction causes severe matting.
And then there is the phenomenon of seasonal shedding.
Mhm.
The terminology used in the grooming world is blowing their undercoat.
Yeah.
That sounds violent. What does that actually mean?
It is an incredibly accurate description, honestly.
Yeah.
It's a biological response triggered by changes in photoperiods, the amount of daylight and temperature shifts.
Okay.
Twice a year, usually spring and fall, the dog's body recognizes the seasonal shift and completely releases that dense undercoat all at once to prepare for the new season's growth.
All at once.
Pretty much. During those few weeks, your brushing frequency has to multiply. You're pulling out literal shopping bags full of loose fur.
Shopping bags. So, with all that hair, the instinct for a lot of people is probably to just throw them in the bathtub constantly. Or worse, to just shave them down in the summer. But the guidelines are very clear that you absolutely should not do that. Why?
Shaving a double-coated dog is a massive mistake because it destroys their thermal regulation.
The thermos effect.
Exactly. That coat traps a layer of air against the skin, keeping them warm in winter, but it also creates a microclimate that insulates them from the heat of the sun in summer.
Wow, I had no idea.
And regarding bathing, overbathing strips the sebaceous glands of their natural oils. That outer coat is designed to be self-cleaning.
Really? Self-cleaning?
Yeah, if a Border Collie gets covered in mud, you let it dry, and then you just brush the dirt right out.
Yeah.
The oils prevent it from staining the hair.
That is amazing. But you touched on summer, and I want to highlight that. The thermos effect is great, but we all know dogs don't sweat like we do.
Right.
So if you have a dog with a massive double coat and an obsessive working drive, what happens when the temperature spikes to 90 degrees?
This is where you, as the partner, have to be the adult in the room. The double coat helps protect from the sun, but heat dissipation is still incredibly tough for them.
Yeah, I'd imagine.
And here's the danger. A Border Collie's working drive will almost always override their physical discomfort.
They won't stop themselves?
No. If you are throwing a frisbee, they will push themselves far past the point of heat exhaustion because the dopamine of doing the job is stronger than the sensation of overheating.
That's intense.
You have to adjust the schedule. You exercise at dawn or dusk. You enforce breaks. You ensure they're in the shade with water. You have to be the one to call it quits because they just won't.
Okay, so what does this all mean? If we take a step back and look at the entire picture we've painted
It's
here,
that big picture.
we are talking about a dog that requires the routine of an air traffic controller. They need intense mental and physical engagement. You have to proactively manage them around moving objects, kids, and cars.
Yep.
And you're managing a complex grooming routine that just explodes twice a year. So I have to ask, is bringing a Border Collie into your life just a recipe for disaster if you are a first-time dog owner who works a standard 9-to-5 job?
It is a profound reality check.
Yeah.
The behavioral data doesn't mince words. This is a demanding, high-stakes breed. If you're a beginner looking for a low-key companion to just hang out on the sofa and casually learn to sit and stay, this is absolutely the wrong starting point. But it is not impossible for a first-time owner as long as they go in with clear-eyed, realistic expectations and a huge willingness to learn.
But wait, if they are so incredibly smart, like literally ranked as the most intelligent breed, shouldn't they be the easiest dogs for a beginner to train? Why is their intelligence actually considered a liability for a novice?
Because smart dogs process information at lightning speed, which means they learn bad habits just as efficiently as good ones.
Oh, I see.
A highly intelligent dog draws conclusions quickly. If the mailman drops a package loudly once, the dog might immediately conclude, loud noises near the door mean the house is under attack, and my job is to defend it forever.
Oh, wow. So one mistake and they've made a new rule.
Exactly. A beginner often uses trial and error in training, but with a Border Collie, you don't have that luxury. They will exploit your inconsistencies. You have to commit to positive reinforcement training and seek professional guidance from day one.
That makes total sense. Now, what about the 9-to-5 job? Because, most people can't stay home all day to entertain their dog. How does a working professional successfully partner with this breed?
A long workday away from home is workable, but it requires military-level planning and hyper-consistent structure.
Military level.
Pretty much. It means you are up early for significant physical and mental exercise before you commute. It usually means hiring a midday dog walker or utilizing a structured doggy daycare to break up the long hours.
Right.
If you establish that predictable rhythm-active morning, midday break, active evening, they can actually learn to settle down and sleep during the in-between hours.
And that active time has to be dynamic, right? You can't just take them to the same park and throw the exact same tennis ball every single day.
No, not at all.
The research emphasizes that preventing boredom means rotating their toys and teaching them entirely new skills. Treating their cognitive engagement as a non-negotiable daily chore, like, taking a shower or brushing your teeth.
Precisely. It is not an occasional weekend extra. It is fundamental to their neurological well-being.
Which brings up the wild card. What happens when your perfectly structured routine gets interrupted? What about travel? If you want to take them on a family road trip or stay in a hotel, how do they handle the disruption?
They can actually be phenomenal travelers, provided you put in the prep work.
Like what?
This is where crate training pays dividends that cannot be overstated. For a dog that is hyper-aware of their environment, a crate acts like a safe, predictable sensory deprivation tank.
Oh, that makes sense. Like your opt-out zone, but mobile.
Exactly. If they're conditioned to love their crate, then car travel, hotels, and even air travel become significantly less stressful. And from a safety perspective, imagine you are driving 70 miles an hour down the highway.
Okay.
A motorcycle speeds by. If your dog's herding instinct triggers at that speed and they aren't crated or securely harnessed, you suddenly have a 40-pound missile in the back seat trying to herd traffic through the window.
Oh my God.
It's incredibly dangerous.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that is a visceral image. And if you can't take them with you, the guidance on boarding seems to suggest you can't just drop them off at the neighborhood kennel.
Absolutely not. You need a facility that deeply understands working breeds. A standard kennel that just tosses 30 dogs into a concrete run for the weekend is going to emotionally shatter a border collie.
Shatter them.
They need structured mental engagement even when you are gone. Honestly, many behaviorists recommend finding a trusted in-home pet sitter instead, simply because it preserves the dog's physical environment and daily flight schedule, which we know is the anchor for their sanity.
All right, bringing all of these threads together. When you bring a border collie into your life, you're looking at a commitment of 12 to 15 years, sometimes more.
A long time.
It demands your time, your emotional consistency, and your genuine willingness to engage in a structured routine every single day. It means managing their instincts on a busy street and inside your own living room. But the underlying message from all the data is clear. For the right person, someone who actually wants that level of deep daily involvement, the sheer capability and the depth of communication you achieve with this dog creates a partnership that is completely unmatched in the animal kingdom.
It is profoundly rewarding if you're willing to put in the work. But, looking at all of this really forces us to confront a bigger, more philosophical question about the intersection of their history and our modern lifestyles.
What do you mean?
Well, Border Collies have been meticulously engineered over generations to solve complex, high-stakes problems out on the harsh elements of a working farm in deep partnership with a human handler.
Right.
They are, by definition, working geniuses. So as our modern world continues to automate and urbanize, and we increasingly ask these brilliant, hyper-capable animals to exist largely as ornamental house companions, what is the psychological toll of that unemployment? Are we fundamentally doing a disservice to their genius by trying to fit them into the mold of a traditional pet?